I have really been indulging in watching people destroy Disney's The Acolyte lately. I am really impressed how Disney somehow manages to sink lower and lower into mediocrity. And for the record, I have not seen the show. I will not see the show. I don't care what that makes you think about my opinion. Based upon positive reviews and negative reviews that I've been watching, and just little bits of clips of content that I've been catching here and there, I think that some of the critics may be just slightly harsh on the show. Yeah, I mean, it is incoherent and terribly written, absolutely. I mean, it craps all over existing canon, undeniably. But I do think there's some intriguing choices and ideas in this series that were just executed horrifically. But there is one thing in particular that has been bugging me about pretty much every critic I've seen of The Acolyte.
Now, you might have thought that Anakin was the only example of Immaculate Conception in Star Wars.
You thought Anakin Skywalker was special with his Immaculate Midichlorian Conception.
Before you have Anakin Skywalker, there was no father. Immaculate Conception of the Force, conceived by the midichlorians.
Because this whole thing, this whole immaculate lesbian conception.
Bro, this is Immaculate Force Conception.
As controversial as it may have been for George Lucas to make Anakin's mother's pregnancy an immaculate conception.
Is this some sort of space surrogacy? Or like, I don't know, like immaculate conception?
No, Anakin is not an immaculate conception. No, the twins from The Acolyte are not immaculately conceived. The term you are looking for is virgin birth. Why does it matter if they're using the wrong term? You get the point.
But if you can't look and see that Anakin blowing up the Death Star possibly killed millions and millions of people.
For people who like to give this actor crap, and rightfully so, for messing up such an entry-level piece of canon, you are doing the same thing by calling Anakin Skywalker immaculately conceived. Except the actor messed up canon in a pretend world that you acknowledge is pretend.
Which of these buttons calls your parents to pick you up?
Whereas the Immaculate Conception pertains to what Catholics believe to be an expression of reality, you know, so like higher stakes there. Christianity is stupid and all made up gobbledygook, says the person throwing a fit about Star Wars. And say whatever you want about it being made up. The depth of the lore, or as we call it, theology, is actually much richer than what you would think. And I'll demonstrate that by showing you just how wrong you are by calling Anakin an immaculate conception. So if Anakin isn't an immaculate conception, then what the heck is an immaculate conception? The Immaculate Conception is one of the Catholic Marian dogmas. It is specifically Catholic. It is a Marian dogma because it applies to Mary, the mother of Jesus, and it states that she was born without original sin and that she committed no personal sin in her entire life. This dogma was made infallible by Pope Pius IX in 1854, and it was supported by Marian apparitions in Lourdes, France by Saint Bernadette. The concept of Mary being immaculately conceived, or born without sin, finds its roots in Marian typology. What's typology? Typology is a form of biblical analysis that highlights how the New Testament is hidden in the Old and the Old Testament is fulfilled in the New. One example of Christological typology, or the typology of Jesus, is how he was the new sacrificial lamb. The Jews' first Passover was in Exodus when they were slaves in Egypt. The angel of death was coming to kill all the firstborn in Egypt, and how the Jews were going to prevent that was by following this specific sacrificial ritual. They were commanded to sacrifice a lamb in a specific way, put the blood of that lamb above their door, and consume the sacrifice, lest their firstborn be killed too. So if we fast forward to the New Testament, Jesus is the new sacrificial lamb. His sacrifice atoned for all of the sins of man because man is incapable of atoning for their sins to God. We partake in this sacrifice at Mass and Divine Liturgy, and we consume the sacrifice when we receive the Holy Eucharist. This is just one simple and incomplete example of typology. So if we go back to Mary, the Marian typology that was used to support the Immaculate Conception, or being born without sin, was Mary as the new Ark of the Covenant. If we look at the Old Testament, the old Ark of the Covenant was built to be the dwelling place of God, and it had within it the staff of Aaron the high priest, manna from the desert when they were doing their desert wanderings, and stone tablets that had the 10 Commandments, or the law. The old Ark of the Covenant was the place where God came to descend to earth and dwelt there, same as how Mary is the point through which Jesus came to us to earth, his incarnation. Jesus is also the high priest, like Aaron's staff. He is also the bread of life, like the manna in the desert. And he is also the Word made flesh, or the law. He is the fulfillment of all of those things that were in the original Ark of the Covenant, just as he resided in Mary, the new Ark of the New Covenant. Now, if we look at the construction of the Ark in the Old Testament, it was commanded to be made pure. It wasn't made and then purified afterwards. In the same way, it was posited that Mary would also be made pure from conception, an immaculate conception, not made pure after the fact, so that she could be a proper ark for Jesus. This is pretty simplified, but it's a basic understanding for where we get Immaculate Conception from. Now, Immaculate Conception, Anakin Skywalker.
I killed them all. And not just the men, but the women and the children too. And I slaughtered them like animals.
Let her go, Anakin.
If this is a consular ship, where is the ambassador?
We're preparing to...
You have failed me for the last time. Apology accepted, Captain Nida.
Does that sound anything like Anakin Skywalker, immaculately conceived? What you're actually trying to refer to is the virgin birth, or that Jesus had no earthly father. Jesus was born of the Virgin Mary, another Catholic dogma. And there have been other claims of virgin births throughout history, so this is not a uniquely Christian claim. Was Shmi Skywalker literally a virgin, did not know man before she had Anakin? Who cares? The overarching phrase virgin birth does not have to stay confined to Christian dogma, and instead can be applied to a miraculous conception, not an immaculate conception. The point is, Anakin was conceived by the Force, similar to how Jesus was conceived by the Holy Spirit. This is the messianic parallel of Anakin Skywalker. This is one of many reasons why Star Wars fans are upset, because when the twins are immaculately conceived by the Force, this diminishes the messianic importance of what Anakin was supposed to be, and they are right to be upset about it. But the concept of an immaculate conception only applies to the Messiah insofar as it was the person who carried him, not the Messiah himself. So in the future, please stop misusing lore, and please refer to Anakin Skywalker and these fanfic OCs as virgin births, not immaculate conception. Thanks.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.